I've been really working with, I'm a member of Ananda, and we've been going deeper and deeper as we always do because that's the practice of yoga. But on my personal journey, I've been really watching how my energy is working out. And am I coming from my head? Am I coming from my gut? Or am I coming from my heart? And I decided that I wanted to be coming from my heart, not my emotions, but my heart much more frequently. And there's a great Chinese proverb that says, when there's light in the soul, there's beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there's harmony in the house. And when there's harmony in the house, there's order in the nation. And when there's order in the nation, there's peace in the world. My joy and my intention as I continue to live on the planet is to be that light of the soul, to bring that forth. And so that's what we're going to do playfully today. Yogananda, his guru, was named Sri Yukteswar. And he said, we cannot take one step on the spiritual path until we uncover the natural love of the heart. And so my inquiry has been, well, what is that for me? What does that look like for me? When we give from our hearts into everything that we do, then our relationships with everyone starts to be oriented from an entirely different vantage point. And I've gotten to be really sensitive because everyone at Ananda is extra sensitive. And so it's like, oh my God, I can't have one dark thought before somebody goes, it's one thing for us to know the power of our words. That's saying it so that everybody knows. But there, it's thinking it. Even that passing in your consciousness. So look at you, kind of go, oh boy, God knows everything everywhere. And so I have to really practice the light of the soul within me. And I have to constantly reattune myself and remember that love is the only power, and I have to share that love. I want to share that love. And when I look at my own incongruities, I realize, okay, the healing takes place as I attune myself more fully to spirit. And I'm beginning to live more and more in that. I mean, we've all been working on it for a long time, but I know I'm further along in my experience as I realize, okay, we have all know Dr. Michael's 4 stages. When life is happening to me, life is happening by me, life is happening through me, or life is happening as me. I've gotten to the place where more times than not, life is happening through me. But I'm working on letting life happen, divine consciousness happen as me. And that's me getting out of the way. In order for us to be happy, we have to get out of the way. And so it's not something to get. Even the Declaration of Independence says that we have the right, we're entitled to the pursuit of happiness. Well, after thinking about that for quite a while, I go, that's exactly what we do. We're constantly pursuing happiness. And how do we just become it? How do I integrate that happiness, that joy, that presence? And it's getting my ego out of the way of the divine circuits, as Emerson says. So we crave that oneness. We crave that experience of the divine within us. And it's a natural set point that you and I decide upon. It's a decision. Happiness is a decision. It's not something that somebody else bestows upon us. It's not even something we accomplish. We decide it. And I thought, is it really that easy? That I can just make a decision and everything in my life is going to work toward me becoming more like that, and I have found that to be true. That doesn't mean I don't have stuff to work through, but I find that it's easier to work through it. And I really have that intention. I choose happiness. I choose joy. And I want to have more of that than I have of all the problems. I can manifest those so easily. Boy, they come just in the second I think of them, they're there. And I don't want to create that. I know how powerful my mind is. So I want to really understand that happiness is 50% genetic and 50% learned. Well, okay, and what about divine consciousness? Those are the things that I choose to embody, and I learn how to embody it. I learn how to bring it closer to my heart by my intention. Marcy Shimoff, who's one of my favorite joyful beings, she says the good news is that we've cracked the code on happiness. And what did we do? What did we discover? The collective awareness now has grown in our awareness of how we can affect our brains. And our brains have all these patterns that we've either inherited or we've increased as our life has continued, and we can alter those brain patterns. That's the science mind is all about that. But what we hadn't learned until recently with the science is that we have neural pathways in our brain that have our emotional patterns locked into them as well. And so in our work that we do, the liabilities that we assume genetically or just because of the patterns in our family perhaps, we've inherited responses that we'd rather not take into our life experiences. So as we learn to give from the heart to ourselves and others, we greatly increase the generosity of spirit, and we greatly increase the effects of our energy. And I'm really playing with this one a lot because I work in the kitchen at Ananda, and they call it the stewing pot of Divine Mother. And it is that if you've got an edge, that someone's going to run into it. And if someone else does, you will be innocently walking by them, and they will, okay, it's definitely a stewing pot. So you have to loosen up a little bit. You have to be more pliable and just remember that how we treat ourselves and how we treat others, there's a huge parallel. So if when someone comes in and, bumps right into me and I'm carrying a tray of food, it's like my instant response is not, oh, how lovely. That my patterns of my family dynamics show up. I'm going, here's my mom. And I don't want that anymore. So I have to just know that, okay, so it's a mirror. If I go there, doesn't mean it's a life sentence. It's just a temporary memory in my consciousness. And so I deliberately, have any of you read The Placebo Effect by Dr. Joe Dispenza? He has this great drawings or pictures of what the synapses in our brains actually do when we intend something more uplifting, when we decide something that's powerful. So we can overcome those things and create neural pathways in our brain that we build by our intention and our focus and our affirmations and our practices. So transformation is something that we really do tackle. Transformation is something we really do bring to ourselves and embody. So we have to be careful that we don't just slide right into our old wounds or someone else's that we've gotten used to. And that's how we learn. That's how we embody something when we go into territories that we're not used to. Has anyone ever discovered, like I did recently, how a baby eagle learns how to fly? It's very interesting. The mother eagle takes the baby up enormously high in the sky, right? And she's carrying this little baby. And what she does is she drops them. And she lets them drop. But she catches them before they hurt themselves. And she does it over and over and over and over again until that little eaglet opens his wings and flies. That's how she teaches. That Divine Mother kind of does that to us too. God just gives us these lessons, and we're kind of going, oh my God, I don't know where the bottom is. Am I going to land on my feet? Well, yes, we will eventually. But I love that metaphor of what the mother eagle does. She's not going to let her baby die, but she's going to let it go until she provokes him or her to fly. And we're in that same cycle. And it's a gift that we get into these very uncomfortable situations, because how many of us are really all that willing when it comes to difficult things that we need to grow through? I don't know about you, that I'm fairly adventurous, but there's a point where if it's too uncomfortable, I might hesitate a little bit. And God just wants us to, He's going to drop us, and we're going to have to open our wings and fly. We're going to have to extend ourselves into new creative ways. And that's when we allow the gifts of divine consciousness to come through us as us, when we're more willing. And Dr. Michael Beckwith says, when we believe more in what we don't see than what we do see, we will see more of what we don't see than what we do see. Now, at first, I gotta go, huh? What we don't see is what we want. But what we do see, we want to let go of. So it's like completely the opposite. So, okay, I got to believe more in what I don't see than what I do see. And I will have what I don't see instead of what I do see. He's always so good at those rhyming things. So that's the call to our evolutionary unfoldment, that we need to participate. That's the dropping part, where God just drops us. We are participants. It's not going to happen even to us. It's not, because if it happens on that level, it's someone else's energy. It has to come through us. And the power and the passion and the energy, the creativity comes through our hearts, and it inspires us. Because if it's not there, then we're not participating. We're not present. I love that Swami Kriyananda said, he says, well, God speaks through us. And he said one time, he said, well, okay, God, you speak. And he just stood there, and he didn't say anything. And so, there's that point at which he's been silent for long enough and everybody starts screaming. And then he said, well, I guess God's not going to talk until I open my mouth. And so the same with all energy. God is everywhere present. God's going to speak through us. God's going to act through us. But we're needing to surrender. The divine is going to express through us as we really experience that unified state. In treatment, we know that God is the only power and presence, and it's the consciousness of the unified field of consciousness that I am that I am. But until I unify with it as a practitioner or as a conscious creator, then I'm not operating from that creative place. And we want to see that line as if it's so easy to see. But we are one with the creator of the universe. And God doesn't have those lines. Everything is a part of it. There's not a spot where God is not. And so as we open our hearts and we listen to our hearts, we start to engage that part of us. And greater flows. Swami Kriyananda wrote 140 books and 400 songs. How did he do that? I mean, it's like, are you serious? I'd like to write 100 songs, or I'd like to write 50 songs. Maybe I've written 15, So it's his creative capacity was so limitless because he knew that master, Yogananda, God, came through him. The unified field of consciousness comes through us, and we're the only one that limits it. It's like our willfulness gets in the way of the divine circuits. So as we listen to our heart, just great possibilities come through for your church, for your relationships, for anything, everything, for healing, for transformation. So there's a friend of mine who wrote a song called Listen to Your Heart, and it will teach you how to love. And I'm not going to sing it for you because I don't quite remember the melody, but it was the most incredible song. And I've used it all along for years and years. We did a play in San Francisco called Dylan's Words and Music, and during that time I met him, and I heard this song several times, and I just loved it because I listened to your heart. It will teach you how to love. And it's not listen to your emotions, because that's not going to teach you how to love. That's going to teach you how to try to get your own way, and how to negotiate space and all kinds of other things that limit us. But Ralph Waldo Emerson said, what lies behind you and what lies in front of you pales in comparison to what lies within you. And that's that heart. That's that consciousness. That's that joyful, infinite creativity. Jesus said, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And so, the ego wants to say, well, gosh, how do I get mine? Well, you do, if you really trust that you cannot outgive God. And of course, if you're testing it to see if you can outgive God, and you're doing it from your ego, it's not going to show up, because it has to be a real generosity of spirit. So, and what is also true is the opposite of that. The contrary is true. When we clutch our feelings to ourselves and we're holding them so tight to our chest, we become more unhappy than happy, because we narrow things down to our self-identity, which is it's about me. And when it's ever about I, me, mine, you can trust things are going to contract, because it isn't about I, me, mine. When you start worrying about you somehow, and I test it out sometimes, I'll go and sit at a table and wait for people to join me. And of course, when I do that, in that mindset, they don't. That nobody joins me. I sit there by myself, because the universe wants me to get that it's not just about me, about them joining me. It's about us coming forth from that oneness. And when I'm coming from that place, all kinds of people sit down. So I test it out a lot. I'm testing myself. I'm seeing, where is my consciousness? Am I really in my heart, or am I in my head? And there's this wonderful, wonderful story that happened to this lady named Ami on her way to a yoga class at Ananda. And she was driving down Tylerfoot Road, which is a street that Ananda's right off of in the country. And it's kind of like driving through Coloma. And you have to kind of keep your eye open, because there's lots of deer coming across the road. And this morning on her way in, there was this mama deer crossing the road. And so she slowed down, and then she came to close to a stop, because then she saw two itsy bitsy baby deer following. And they panicked. They were only a day old. And so she stopped her car, and they panicked, and all fours went flat and closed their eyes, and they're trembling. So she gets out and she tries to move them along. They would not budge. And so another lady joined her, and finally they came to the conclusion, we're going to have to pick them up and get them out of the street, because they're trying to keep people from coming too close. And so they picked them up, and they held them close to their heart. And they stroked them, and they breathed consciously, and they felt the baby deers relax. And once they relaxed, they had their eyes tight, closed. They weren't going to look and they weren't going to see anything. They were just totally frozen. They relaxed and they opened their eyes and looked right into Ami's eyes. And she said the feeling was just awesome. And she walked the baby across the street, put the baby down. They saw the mother was waiting behind the tree. The baby's run to the mother. And that experience has rippled out to those of us that heard it. And it just speaks to the issue that we're talking about today. When we give from our heart selflessly, when we really are there in presence for somebody or something, there's a power of love that transcends the experience, and doors open and things happen that we could never ever imagine, because there's the power for good is love. It's harmony. It's transcendent. And so what I've come to realize is that love, all beings respond to that love. Even those precious little deer responded to that love. And human beings, animals, plants, everything responds to that love. We've heard about the tests of the water changing when they had a loving word or loving phrase. I've had, American Indians they have a glass of water on the side of their bed, and they send love to it, and they send healing to it, and they let it bring all kinds of loving energy to the water overnight. They put it next to your bed, and in the morning they drink it. They drink the loving vibration that they've brought into that. They've called into that. Whereas what is also true, as Dr. I can't remember his last name. I know you know. The guy who did the water experiments, that Japanese doctor. Emoto, yes. Dr. Emoto proved how the negative words it changed the water molecules. They were like deteriorated. That's how sensitive life is. And we have to realize, since we have inherited the awareness that the power of our thoughts are things, that we have the responsibility of being aware of our thoughts and how we use them. Not to make us feel badly about ourselves when we don't do very well. That's the opposite. But it's an awareness we got to have to catch ourselves, to go, wait a minute, do over. I'm going to rethink this one, and what I want, I personally place it on the altar fire of the divine. Say, I don't want that thought. I'm going to clear that energy, and I'm going to place it on the altar of, I say Divine Mother, but Father, Mother, God, the Infinite, Christ, whatever is the word or the power, whatever you want that embodies the transmuting power of Spirit, I put it there, knowing that I am not going to increase any of the negativity in my own life. I am going to keep drawing to myself greater and greater love. So it's not from our emotions, it's our hearts. And that's where the creativity comes. That's where the generosity of spirit comes. That's what we want to increase in the world. And every time we hear anything negative, Dr. Michael Beckwith says, any negative thing in the news or anywhere is a call for prayer. So pray for it. Pray for the transcendent of the loving consciousness of God to embody that situation. Just like our sweet practitioner over there is praying, Sandy's praying for the well-being of everyone in this room and everyone else connected to this community, and for the well-being of the world and the earth and all living things. So we're just like that deer, the baby deer. There are things in our own lives that we freeze up with and we get stuck in. But there again is the opportunity to call forth the presence and say, okay, I don't want to get caught up in my likes and dislikes, what I want or don't want. That shuts things down. That shuts me down. That shuts you down. It closes down the possibility of greater cooperation. So our joy comes from giving from the heart. And today, we're going to have a wonderful experience that we'll explain to you in a minute. And so just like that baby deer, we will relax. The energy will relax. We'll be more creative. And just like those two ladies that picked up those baby deer, we have that same compassion. We have that same consciousness of God. That's the spiritual food that Jesus said we know not of. That is the power and the presence of God within us, acting through us. When we give from that place, grace enters. When we give from that place, greater creativity is expressed. When we give from that place, infinite possibilities are there for us. But here lies the opportunity, because along with declaring that, then the door is open and our courage has to come forth. We have to step out, just like those little babies. They stepped out, and sometimes they just lost their center and just went frozen and closed their eyes and pretend it wasn't there. You can imagine how that baby eaglet felt when he was falling from the sky going, oh my God, what are you going to do? You're going to let me die. I mean, it's just that fear grips us. And we have those experiences. But today we're going to know that there is a power and a presence and a spirit that we know not of. And it's going to feed our souls. And today we're going to do some of that. So repeat after me, affirm with me. I am happy in the good fortune of all.
I am happy in the good fortune of all,
Even more than my own.
even more than my own.
For in my happiness for them
For in my happiness for them
lies inner freedom.
lies inner freedom.
Okay, now say it with great emphasis. We're going to do this 5 times. I am happy in the good fortune of all.
I am happy in the good fortune of all,
Even more than my own.
even more than my own.
For in my happiness for them
For in my happiness for them
lies inner freedom.
lies inner freedom.
Okay, now we're going to say it more softly. I am happy in the good fortune of all.
I am happy in the good fortune of all,
Even more than my own.
even more than my own.
For in my happiness for them
For in my happiness for them
lies inner freedom.
lies inner freedom.
Now we're going to whisper it. I am happy for the good fortune of all. Even more than my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. Now we're going to close our eyes and we're going to go within and bring our energy up to our third eye. I am happy, and silently, I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom. One more time, bringing the energy all the way up to your third eye, the superconscious mind. I am happy in the good fortune of all, even more than my own. For in my happiness for them lies inner freedom.